forgot something.
Oh yes, you did forget about me. You will never finish me.
I swear, I will finish you. Sounds familiar? Welcome to another episode of Wrenching. Today, we will dive a little bit more into the 61 project. Here we are, and now we will go through the list, what is still to do, what I have done and what is planned. Just a little bit more detail than in the first video of the 61. So you really know what I have still to do and you have overview. Also you can imagine how everything will come together. So let's start with the list. We start with the first thing on the 61, it's the body. What is already done? Already done are the front doors left and right. Then lower and upper tailgate, they are already painted. I think they are dry. They dried for probably half a year or longer. The inner wheel housings left and right are already done. The radiator support, hood, and the sheet metal under the front lights. I actually don't know how it is called in English, but we will go with sheet metal under the front lights. Now we will get the parts and then I give you a little overview. So it's time to get the parts off of our storage container, where I may cut the door or may not cut the door.
Easy access.
So, so first thing, the front sheet metal. That's one of the front doors. I just took one to let you see how it looks. So the front doors are sandblasted. After the sandblasting I did weld them, mostly in the lower part. I mean, most of the 60s are rusted away in this area. This door was rusted away here too. I welded it, then we put some zinc-based primer on it in two layers, and afterwards I painted it in this Tacoma beige. The upper and lower tailgate are actually the same as the front door was. Sandblasted, welded, primer and paint. That's the inner wheel housings of the car. It's the same here. I welded it, I mean you see I welded it. And also on the inner wheel housings, when we fit it to the car we have to cut them because, as you know, I cut the rocker panels. So the fenders and the inner wheel housing will be much shorter. I will probably cut them around here somewhere. Yeah, as I said, I cut the rocker panels on this car. They would be normally around here. Yeah, they are around here. And now you see the rocker panels are but a bit above the inner wheel arch. So afterwards I have to cut the inner wheel arch, and also the fender goes over here. I have to cut the fender. So everything is at the same height, and afterwards it is painted on the inner and outer side, but on the inner side I will apply some Raptor liner afterwards with the same color, so the gravel will not damage the paint instantly. And that's it about the wheel arches, and now we will go to the next thing. I mounted up everything for you so you can imagine how everything comes together in the front end. The two inner wheel arches, and that's the front radiator support. The front radiator support is called radiator support because of an easy reason. The radiator is normal in here. You have down there two brackets, and there is where the radiator is bolted in. And with the radiator support it was actually the same as with the inner wheel arches. Sandblasting, then I welded it. They are normally rusted out around here. This one was actually rusted in this spot and this spot. That is because the inner wheel housings or arches are bolted from underneath in it, and as I said in probably the last 3 videos, where 2 layers of sheet metal come together, there will always be rust, because in between is always, as I said or mentioned, salt or whatever, and it was the same on this car. And the next thing will be the sheet metal under the front lights. The front lights are sitting here on the 61, 4 ones. 60 would have 2 round ones, but it's a 61, so square ones. And the sheet metal is sitting here. And now we will go and look at the to-do list, what is still left on the body and what I have to do to finish the body of the car. As I mentioned before, the front doors are done because they were actually easier to do, they were not rusted. Beep beep. So what I have to do is still the two rear doors. I have one door broad, so I can show you where they rust normally. Let's go to the door. This is one of the rear doors of the car, and as I mentioned before, they tend to rust in the lower part of the car. Same on the rear doors. I opened where the sheet metal is clamped together because the door is made from two stamped pieces, the inner thing and the outer layer, and in between they rust just the way. So I opened the entire gap to look inside. I have to cut out here the entire sheet metal piece, and also this door was already sandblasted. It will get a second time sandblasted. As I said, I have to weld it around here because it is rusted away actually. One of the last bits on the body I have to weld is this hole. As I mentioned, 61 buying it wise video, they tend to rust away from the B-pillar backwards, and that's the inner wheel arch, the back inner wheel arch, and that's the trunk floor. Frame is running around here and down there, and dirt tends to stick between the inner wheel arch and the frame support. So it's actually not the frame support, it's the body mount, and yeah, that is where they all rust through. If you remove the carpet in yours, probably it is done here. And also you can see how I welded in the wheel arch, the outer wheel arch. On the other side I already welded it, but yeah, that is still a thing to do. That's probably one of the last things on the body. Yeah, I think it is one of the last things. Afterwards are the fenders. The fenders are already sandblasted. They are actually not rusted because I got the fenders from a 62 and they are actually not from a 61, so they have vents. The 61 doesn't have vents, but the 62 does have. It will probably look good on a 61. I like the vents. It gives the car different appearance, especially in Europe where you have no 62s because gasoline landcruisers are not really common here. We just have diesel ones. That will it be in terms of the body actually, and we will progress to the next thing on the done and to-do list. And after I have welded everything on this body will go to the sandblaster to get really rid of all the rust or left rust. There is not much left, but I don't want that the rust is popping up again somewhere because I already because I also will paint the floor panels from underneath, so the car is painted everywhere and does look good even on a car lift. And then after the painting comes the funny part, or for me I think it's the funny part, to put the car back together. What I always have fun because you see progress, you see it gets a car again, and every day you do something, you're a little bit closer to drive it. And that's the fun part of it. And now we will step forward to the engine. As you see, I made a nice smiley because I have done nearly everything on this thing. There are just some minor things left. First of all, the pre-feeding pump on the engine. I overhauled it, but I bolted in, yeah, I will not say a cheap hand pump, but the same hand pump as I put in on the 40. And when you follow my channel, yeah, the 40 stopped working because of the hand pump. It sucked in air and then it went out because the pre-feeding pump, the hand pump was not cheap, but it seems it is garbage. So I have to change that too. The next thing will be radiator and radiator hoses. Radiator support, as we mentioned before. Here comes the radiator and there are the hoses connected to the radiator. Also there are the pipes for the inner heater, the metal ones what are actually installed on the engine, and they are connected with rubber hoses to turbocharger, water pump, inner heater, back heater, but we will remove the back heater. We don't need it actually because nobody will drive it in the winter, and when you ever drove a 61 in the winter, they tend to heat very well. But there is the big
But
I will not put in the old bronze radiator, we will put in an aluminium one. I already ordered one, and when I will get it, we will make a little review about it, but that is not the theme for this episode. So as I said, that's the metal pipes. The thing is, I hate the rubbers actually. I hate these rubber parts because it is no straight hose. It is bent in every direction, and if you blow a hose or damage a hose, you can fit aftermarket hoses or straight hoses, but they always tend to have a nick in it, so the water is actually not flowing very well through them. So I will fabricate new heater pipes and will make them longer. Also on the upper and lower radiator hoses, I will make it out of aluminium probably. Pretty sure I'll make it out of aluminium. So you have to imagine here the hose normally, and I will make here an aluminium pipe, and just the last bits of it will be rubber hoses. So when the engine is moving and flexing, it doesn't rip off the aluminium pipes. But I will get most of the rubber stuff out and will just make it out of aluminium, so it lasts longer and it is for me easier because we are in Europe and every part I order for this car, I mean I have a big pile of spare parts for it. It's a pain, it's always a pain. I always have to order it from Australia or somewhere, and it just takes time, and that's why I will get rid of everything what could stop this car from working actually. And now we will go to the next thing on the list. So, and the other thing I have to still replace, I put the old ones actually on, are the vacuum lines of the engine. These things, they actually do not much on a 61 besides turning it off on, I would say, throttle body. There's for sure an English word for it what is better than throttle body, but we will call it now throttle body. If you turn off a 61, this flap is closing and he dies because he has no air. This is how these things are shutting down. Because the rubber lines are probably as old as the engine, we will replace them. Other thing we have to do is replace, we don't have to replace it because there are no fuel lines on it. I will put steel fuel lines on it, and actually there is also no fuel tank in it. That's also a thing still left to do. And the last bit of it, I didn't torque down the main crankshaft bolt. That's a thing I forgot. I didn't forget it, but before I start the engine, I have to control every big bolt. I'm pretty sure I tightened everything, but you should control everything when you disassemble the car that far. And now we will go to the next thing. It will be the electric system of the car. So, as you see, there is not one wire in it. Actually, yeah, there is one wire in it, but the loom is missing. So I have to overhaul the loom. That means I have to get rid of all the isolations on the loom, control every connector, control every relay on it. Sounds probably for you like a lot of work. It is actually a lot of work, but it is worth it. As I have seen on the 40, you just have to do it. Everything is old, you should control it, and also power windows, everything. I will open the motors, look how good they are in the inside, and probably replace some parts, but that is it in terms of electric system. The next things I called specials. So why it is called specials? Because the car didn't have it before. Actually it had some parts of it before, but it didn't have an intercooler because the 12 HD is, yeah, I would say restricted in power. So intercooler, let's go to the intercooler. What we will do. Here we have air-to-air intercooler. As you see it in most of the cars, it would go in front of the radiator like this, you see, and you will drive and air will come, and the boost, or let's say the air the engine consumed, no, the engine, yeah. The engine air would go through it, and the ambient air would cool it down. They call it cool it down. The engine air would probably have 140 degrees, something like that, and probably the air-to-air intercooler would cool it down by the half. Do we put in an air-to-air intercooler? No, because I hate the long piping and cutting holes in the radiator support. And actually, when everything is in there, especially on the turbocharger side, it's a pretty tight fit for big pipes. That is just a show off. Intercooler, we would have gone with a 3-inch one, so 76 millimeters. And to put a 76 millimeter pipe in that tight space around here would be hard. So what we are doing is air to water one. That will be our choice. Why air to water one? Because the ways are much shorter. We will put such a thing up here, and sure, I have to weld the custom piping and also some brackets to hold it down, and so on and so on and so on. But if you imagine, the way for air-to-air intercooler would probably be, I would say, around 2.5 meters, and the way for this thing will be 50 centimeters. So there is less volume to fill, and the car will be much more aggressive on the throttle. And pretty sure the water-air intercooler also will bring down the engine air in terms of temperature. It will cool just more, that's it. Sure, it is a little bit, let's say, more difficult, because we need an external coolant system actually with an electric water pump, and we have to put a little cooler in front of the actual radiator for the engine. But as I said, shorter ways and probably more power. And yeah, it is just more compact, easier to remove, and that's why we will do it. Also the, what, da musst du uns dann schneiden. And also the intake manifolds of the 61, we will get for sure rid of the rear one, because there will sit the intercooler, and also we will get rid of the front one, because there is no sense in having just one original one and one is an intercooler. So we will go with a 3-inch, so 76 millimeter aluminum piping to the air filter housing, and also the air filter housing will be modified. So when you imagine the air filter housing, you have the inlet for the air filter housing, yeah, and on a 61 it is like this, yeah. You have to imagine when you take a straw and put it in your mouth and try to breathe, will be pretty hard to get enough air through that little straw that you can survive. Same with this engine. I mean, sure, they drive, but there is potential. They have their limits, and actually they are pretty low. If you look like on a 80 series with a HD FT, they can make much more power, like really much more than a 12 HD, but still a 12 HD is not a weak engine. So we will go to the next thing, and that will be O2 housing. On a gasoline engine it would be the O2 housing. And this is actually a turbocharger from a 12 HD, a Toyota CT26. It's a massive chunk of turbocharger. It's the exhaust housing. The exhaust housing would normally go, if I can fit it, oh, it's the wrong direction. It goes on that way. That would be normal the O2 housing on the turbocharger. So there comes the exhaust manifold. It spins the turbine spins the compressor wheel, and there comes out the boost. And what's the problem with it? Actually, there is no problem, it works. But if we remove it, we see, boop, boop, boop. Wait a minute. We see the outlet is just tiny, like really tiny. It's 58 millimeters. That is a 55 millimeter pipe, I think. Here it's a 55. So that would be the original size, exhaust size on our 61. You have to imagine it's a 4-liter engine, and that's the exhaust. It is tiny. So we will make a new O2 housing with a friend of mine. He works in a big metal company. He has a laser cutter and so on and so on. He has access to big machines. He will machine me out the flange and I will weld the O2 housing. And then we will replace everything with a 76 millimeter pipe. That's original size. That's the size we are going with on the exhaust. It's big, so the engine can get all the heat and all the exhaust gases as fast as possible away. And also, yeah, actually such a big pipe should have been from factory on this car. I mean, more or less it is a 7.5 ton truck engine, same with the 80s, and then you have such exhaust pipes to reduce the power for being an off-roader, but yeah, we will change that. So, and the last thing, as I mentioned in the video of the introduction of the 61, we will put on a RB front pumper, and we also will make a rear pumper for it, because on this car was the chrome pumper style rear pumpers with the fog lights in it, and yeah, they are like paper thin. So if you back up and ram something, they are bent instantly, and we will make a not much, but a heavier pumper, so you can drive actually off-road with it. So, and our last thing is control everything. That's the thing we will do while we put it together, and afterwards, when it is mostly done, we have control to control all the bolts, all the brackets, hoses, connectors, and so on, because I already know, something will leak, or I have forgotten to tighten something. Always happens. That's just what it is when you restore a complete car. This was it with today's episode of Wrenching. I hope you could get a better picture of the 61 and what will be the next things I have to do. The next things for sure, if you see something from the 61, will be fenders and how I put together the front end, so I can make the intercooler and the exhaust, so I know how to run the piping, where is everything going. We will put together the front end, put the radiator in, and so on and so on. Will be much work, but it will for sure be interesting for you to see how everything comes together. And we will see us on the next episode of Wrenching. Please subscribe to our social media and help us to grow the channel. Thanks for watching.